This is written by the great Roy Hargrove. It's called Trust. We're going to end the set with Trust.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Keanna Faircloth, host of The Pulse and Afternoon Jazz on WBGO, Monday through Friday, 4 to 8 p.m. I am always excited to welcome my guests, but I'm especially excited tonight because we claim him as DC's own, even though apparently he was born in New York. Pianist, one of the hardest working musicians, composers, educators I know who's out there right now, Mr. Marc Cary.
Hey,
Hey. Yeah.
hey, what's happening, y'all? All right.
Oh, that was gorgeous what we just heard.
That was emotional. It's funny. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It was a great experience to
Yeah.
play the DC Jazz Festival and celebrate all my mentors and collaborators, especially Roy though, it's my man.
Yeah. So that one he actually wrote,
Oh
Trust.
yeah. That's a mantra. That's his mantra. It's got a beautiful lyric to it. But it's a prayer, Um,
Mm.
he is very spiritual in nature, very connected to what he does. He's really truly was I think he was a devout musician,
Mm.
Yeah.
Hmm. And we find that one on your album, Life Lessons, which I
Yeah.
have. It's dropping on September 17th.
Yes. Yep. I think we dropped a single today too.
Yes, indeed. And it aired today on WBBO.
Yes, it did, didn't it?
I am just, proud of you not only being, of course, a graduate of the illustrious, prestigious Duke Ellington School of the Arts
Yeah.
in DC, but also, people say you've graduated from Miss BC Academy and Abby Lincoln Academy as well. You've been out there for a long time.
Yeah. Well, when you look back, it becomes a long time. It doesn't seem that way when the journey up to, through is if you are mindful of what you're doing, you're not really thinking about, the interval in that way. But when you look back, I have a chance to look back, especially during this period, and which has been really helpful for me because I've been able to connect some dots, for myself and for people that follow me and enjoy the music of the people that I've participated with and collaborated with. But I put out a lot of, you know, back catalog that I've had,
Yeah.
the archives.
Yeah.
And they connected some dots. So yeah, but looking back is something else. I've been here for a minute. Thank you for noticing.
No, we noticed how hard you've been working. Oh, I mean, over 30 recordings you have at this point.
Yeah.
That's prolific.
Well, I would say that that's kind of how I was taught. Coming up through and graduating through the Betty Carter uh, Academy and the Abby Lincoln Academy and the Dizzy Gillespie Academy. Like I've really been through some academies that, we speak a lot of Abby and Betty because obviously they're some of the strongest women that we have in the history of the music that represent, the trueness of the music and also that represent the struggle of the music. I mean, because they had to overcome a lot of things. But then, people like Dizzy Gillespie, who I got the good fortune of being in his youth orchestra. That's how I met Dizzy. I played for his 70th anniversary
Wow.
at Wolf Trap. And that's before I was in Roy's band. I met Roy's soon-to-be manager, who was Dizzy Gillespie's road manager at that point. And you can see it. I got the video. I'm gonna send you a clip.
Yeah, please.
It's me and Dizzy blowing out his candles, and he blew out his candles. I patted on the back, like, happy birthday, Diz. So
Wow.
like, I'm looking back, like I couldn't imagine how deep that moment was. I knew in the moment, but to look back and realize like that's what's under me, those kind of people, is a lot of pressure. So that's why I work so hard.
Yeah, you stand on some huge shoulders, man.
Yeah.
I mean, how old were you when you were playing in
16.
the band?
Yeah.
16?
Yeah, in the it is the Dizzy Gillespie Blues Alley Youth Orchestra. So thanks to Bob Israel and the collaboration between Duke Ellington and well, yeah, Duke Ellington had something to do with it a lot because that was like the interface. You know, you go to Blues Alley, you come to Duke Ellington and do a master class. So I met a lot of cats like that. But they collaborated, Dizzy Gillespie's organization and Blues Alley collaborated and created an orchestra. So the Frontline Jazz Ensemble was the core of the group. And we were an all black band put together by Frankie Addison, who's one of my greatest. I give him so much thanks because that's the first jazz band I played in.
Wow.
And, you know, we were taken under the wing of people like, you know, Congressman John Conyers. And, you know, so we were all up on the Capitol, you know, all through, you know, the Senate playing all the parties. And we were also the core band for the Dizzy Gillespie Youth Orchestra. So through that experience, I really learned how to kind of take a bit of control over my desire and the directions I wanted to go, mostly because I never been signed to a major label. You know, I never really had that kind of what I would expect from a major label, which would be, you know, the artist development and that whole infrastructure. What was presented to me was not that kind of thing. And I definitely collaborated with a few labels soon to realize that, you know, most musicians never complete a business deal because you never get paid. You know, there's a lot of trickery in the business, and a lot of people let things slide that ends up coming off your table. So it's sliding off your table, not theirs. So I learned how to just kind of take a bit of control with the direction of how things work for me. And that's why I have so much to show, you know, for my time.
Yeah.
I put those records out in most situations, or collaborated with a label and produced the records and released through them. So this is my body of work. I'm very proud of it. Thank you.
I'm so glad that you mentioned the label thing, because I was actually going to ask you, was that intentional, you not signing with a major label? Because with all of the folks that you've worked with, I mean, it seems like you would have signed with a major label, but why?
The allure of it sounds good, but you got to remember, I came up through the period where they were trying to go around the generation that was due their rightful recognition and positioning for the allure of, maybe if we get these young lions, call them young lions, package them up and sell them as some of the greatest to ever happen. That backfired on them because it produced a lot of the musicians that I collaborated with. I wasn't a young lion. I was too old to be a young lion. I was just like, I'm always either a year old or too young or some kind of somewhere in the middle. So I was thankful because I didn't get bunched up in that personally, but I was in those groups, you know. And I just think that period, you know, they snatched up a lot of cats that necessarily weren't mature enough to watch their backs, you know. And so a lot of those cats got signed, and then they looking for a label. They looking for a home now. They looking for what to do, and they don't own their material. Labels own all that stuff. So if it's out of print, it's out of print. My stuff stays in print because I own it now. And I mean, I'm not bragging. I'm saying that's hard work to keep all of that. And 100% of nothing is 100% of nothing. So you got to put work in it. You got to administer your publishing. You have to, you know, meet and greet. You have to get your, you know, you have to deal with your budgeting. You have to know how to budget. You have to know how to do the whole thing.
Right.
Everything that you want someone else to do for you, you have to know how to do it. And if you don't know how to do it, you have to bring people on your team, which I'm fortunate. I don't know how to do all this stuff personally. I concentrate on the things that I can really be effective at. And I study the things that I don't know, but I have, you know, my business partner and wife, she is really brilliant. You know, she understands the changes of the business like I understand the changes of music. So it's really a nice.
I love that.
Yeah, it's just a beautiful combination, and we get along.
Yeah.
But my point is, not everyone necessarily has that, but you still have to know what to do. Otherwise, people are going to take your stuff and run with it. And then they're going to say, "Oh, I didn't know." Later, they're going to always say, "Oh, it wasn't my intention." Yeah, no. They really do. They really, oh man, I heard the greatest stories, and most of the beautiful apologies, but yet that money ain't in my pocket and they still don't account.
Wow.
So I'm not blasting nobody out. I'm just saying in this day and age, we have the capacity and the ability to control our lives musically and business wise. And that is the missing element in the schools. Is the missing element. Everybody wants to know how to play the changes and how to run up and down the changes, right? But then once you learn that, you are just a tool without the information needed to control your destiny. Someone else is going to control your destiny. They're going to be like, "You're a great piano player. You're great for my project. Here's your itinerary." I don't need nobody's itinerary except for the people I committed to, like Blackout. There's certain people that I'll always receive an itinerary, but I want to control my destiny. I don't need no surprises. I don't need to know that now we're going to Europe tomorrow. Nah. I know I'm going to Europe because I'm planning on it. That's where I'm at in my life. That's where I'm at.
Right. And you dropping life lessons right now.
That's what the album is about.
Yes.
Literally.
So let's get into it. You talked about reflections. I want to know some of the reflections that you had in creating this album. It's about what, 3 years in the making, this album?
Well, by the time September 17th comes, the making starts way before you produce the album. The making of the album is the concept, the idea, the birth of the idea into a manifestation of the actual realization of this physical thing that people can listen to, put on something. So yeah, that is about 3 years. Obviously, we did it just before everything shut down, and we were planning on releasing in that time period, that before the summer. But then things happened the way they did, so here we are.
Yeah, I think everything in its own time. I think now is an especially good time because a lot of the tracks on this album just seem to have a quality of healing, which all of your music really does, but especially this, I feel.
Yeah,
Now,
I feel it too. I feel it too.
Tell me about the trio. I know you guys have been working together for a while at your Harlem sessions.
The trios, that trio is this really incredible set of individuals with incredible lives. They both are band leaders, and they were both my students at one time. Diego I met through the Betty Carter Jazz Ahead program, so that's really dear to my heart. Anyone that really embraces that concept of Betty Carter's music and what rhythm meant to her, the guy has a place in my heart, and obviously can play with me. We can play together very well because he really got it. And so Diego and I met, and I asked him if he would like to play with me in a professional context at some point, and he said yeah. So I was like, I committed to the idea, and then it manifested through the Harlem sessions. I've been doing this session for 3 years prior to meeting them with other trios that I developed, some other incredibles that we're not talking about right now, but just as important, especially that this trio had a place to be. Like there's people that set up the 3 years that we spent, together. So my point is, when we got to Smoke Jazz Club, Paul Stash has always been a supporter of me, the artist. And he understood the concept that I didn't necessarily want to thin my value down by performing every week as Marc Cary, and that I'd like to open the stage up to everyone that in the community, make a community ensemble. But through that, we had to develop the home, the core band. So 3 years of every week performing and learning new music to perform, to add to the curated set list, it's just incredible because we were able to develop, in some cases, a big band in that very small space of people actually playing ensemble parts, not just waiting a solo.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm talking about. Like the solo is less important than the ensemble work. The solo shines when the ensemble is really one. And so that's always been my concept, to bring a community together. And I got that from Sekou Sundiata, and a lot more from Sekou, because he was a community person. Like Betty and Abby were artists, the artist. You know what I mean? It was about them, you know what I mean? And when I say about them, everything about them, you know, their politics, the things they thought about. So I'm not like putting them in no box. I'm just saying that Sekou actually would go out into the community and have community talks with people at concerts. He had call it community sing. And he'd sing we'd all get together and sing the indoctrinated songs that we all know, like the nursery rhymes and these different songs. And then we talk about them and get to the nuts and bolts of why am I indoctrinated to know this stuff? So this the ability to bring people together and unify on something that we all commonly know, like the national anthem.
Yeah.
You know, things we've been indoctrinated with. So the Harlem Sessions was my way of being in the community and addressing issues. Like the songs that we picked weren't all from the American songbook, but more from the artists that were the composers, you know, like the Cats, you know. So that's more, I was more about bringing the side B tracks in.
Yeah.
You know, I like side B.
It just, some powerful stuff came out of the Harlem Sessions. I'm curious because the theme here is life lessons. You mentioned Sekou and how you learned a sense of community from just watching him, right?
Yeah, participating, you know. He was a second manifestation of real community involvement.
Who's the first one?
Well, the first happened in DC when I was 15. So you got to understand, like, my life, I'm going to do a documentary, and I really, a lot of it, I can't just reveal, because then it's like so many questions. Everybody has so many questions. But to put it in a little nutshell, I had an incredible journey to get to Duke Ellington School of the Arts. I went through rehab at the age of 14, basically because I was an entrepreneur at a very early age. And even in DC, you got music, you got sports, or federal government, and any kind of variation of that kind of situation, you know. Yeah. So it was always for me, about autonomy. I grew up in a household where, you know, I had a stepfather, and I was one of 5 siblings. So, you know, it was like, you know, you got to get yours. You got to get out there, and I did lawns. I had a paper route. I had all kind of things that from the time that I was trusted to go out, and the paper route was the first thing. And then you know, I got into just the entrepreneurship, so I put a band together very early age. But then, you know, I got fascinated with the ability to make money, and I tried other things that got me into trouble. So the trouble led me to Rap Incorporated. The best thing that could ever happen to me. I met it. First of all, I was 15 years old in a program with heroin veterans, 20-year heroin and cocaine veterans who used to be doctors and had families and had been to their highest heights and dropped to their lowest points. So I got to learn from them all the things of what not to do. So like that left me with a vastness of what to do. And one of the things that I found most valuable was my new appreciation for the sophistication of jazz, because I was coming through go-go.
Right.
You know, I had a go-go band at the age of 12, and we would call High Integrity Band and Show. And we used to win the battle of the bands and everything at that age with our age group, you know. Sometimes we were battling older bands, and we had paint cans. And at that time I was playing drums. I went from drums to trumpet to keyboards in that band. That's how I ended up on keyboards. And from there, I met this man named Daniel Witt, who broke down the science of music, which led me to Duke Ellington School of the Arts. And so I did my audition while I was in rehab, and I was accepted. So the first 6 months of being in Duke Ellington, I had to have a chaperone taking me to school every day until I finished the 12-step program, which is 18 months. Wow. So 18 months of being away from my family. I never went back home after that to live. I went to live with my counselor, who was the Dr. Kokiah Patterson, who was an herbalist and an acupuncturist. And through that network, I really learned community. So Rap Incorporated put me in the projects. And like at the age of 14, I'm going to middle schools doing performing a play that was all about trying to encourage kids not to get on crack. And I was the kid on crack in the play, stealing from his mother. And so the whole thing was this experience done to the soundtrack of Gil Scott-Heron's Living in a Bottle.
Wow.
You know, so like I'm performing for kids that I'm supposed to be in class with, showing them that there's another way. I did a PSA. I did a PSA, a public service announcement about PCP, and I won. I won the competition, and my PSA was played all through DC. You know, so these kind of things motivated me to be community oriented, also to be involved in and to have a voice, not only as the musician, but as the, you know, the entrepreneur, the cat that brings economy to people. Like, so, you know, bringing economy to the trio, opportunity to play every week. This album should present some things that, you know, we could feed our families with. And that's having control over that is a powerful thing. So that's my message. You know, I'm sorry, I'm pretty direct about what I'm talking about, Keanna.
I love that. And, you know, it just makes so much sense. You early on, you knew you want to control because you've always sort of been resourceful and, you know, taking control of your own destiny, it seems. So you knew right early on that you wanted to be in control of
I'm gonna quote Gary Bartz. I'll quote Gary Bartz on that very same subject. He has a book called Everything's Under Control. And so that the question is, who is control? In this situation, I'm control. But when they say everything's under control, that means someone is controlling it or something is controlling it. You know what I mean? So I want to be control. I'm control, the control center in my life. And I bring people in and involve myself and do business with people who do business. And that's the plan. And that's what I've been attempting to do. And I think now I have a clear path of doing it. Now that I'm out of the way of people that make promises that they don't keep. Like paying you for your record. You know, that's a big deal. And most musicians never finish the deal. You end up with a high interest loan. Debt. You end up with debt. That's a record deal is a high interest loan. And it's not a deal if it's not complete. If you don't get your back end, which means the artist has responsibility for himself.
Right.
If you give your publishing away, if you give your shit away for perpetuity, excuse my language, if you give your stuff away for perpetuity, then you have nothing. So you have to negotiate, and most of the time people don't want to negotiate with you. You know, this is our contract. So you have to fight for yours if you want to do business in that kind of way. And most people just don't have the capacity to deal with that. They're so happy that someone offered them a deal, you know, and I've been in that situation. And so I've learned that. That's part of the Life Lessons album. This album is my autonomy from everybody that made promises. And all through my career, I've been associated and leasing my records to people that said they would make a deal. I've been going 50-50 on people who didn't give me my 50 from the proceeds that they collect. You know what I mean? Like they didn't finish the deal. You know, so this is the new start. And the album's Life Lessons because it is a new start. And and I'm starting with these 12 lessons. And each song, really, if you want to get to the meat of it, each song particularly is a conversation piece. You want to talk about And It's Supposed to Be Love. That's about domestic abuse. That's about abuse, period, in relationships, whatever the relationship, business, you know, a personal love relationship, family. So that's really about that. And it has lyrics. So the lyrics really have they're descriptive. And I'm directly quoting that lyric as a lesson.
Since we're talking about the lessons on the album, I wanted to ask you about It's Not a Good Day to Die.
Thank you. Okay, It's Not a Good Day to Die is a song that started off as another song and morphed into this for the particular reason that I started it on the album Roads Ahead, Volume 1. And it's known on that record as Transient Treasure. Okay, and Transient Treasure is a part is the title of a poem by one of my mentors, Mr. Lawrence Wheatley. And the poem goes, transient treasures, ephemeral pleasures, always fade too early. And down the side, it says tease. So I forget what kind of poem that is, but it reveals a word out of the seven, statements.
Yeah.
It's not a haiku, it's something else. It's something else. But anyway, Lawrence Wheatley kind of gave me that. But so that song went from Transient Treasure into a piece that I performed with Sekou Sundiata, because I was his musical director for a period. I had the pleasure of being put in that position and learning from that responsibility, truly, because I had never done that for someone else before. Well, I had, but not to that degree, and someone with that much depth, and with that much lyrical content to keep track of and really embrace, So I really had to become a part of his mind to appreciate the position he put me in as a musical director. But he also embraced that song, and the great Gina Breedlove, who's an incredible vocalist, who worked with the great Harry Belafonte, sang in The Lion King for years, played, was in that production for forever. And she's just one of the greatest singers and a spiritual gift to the world. And she gave me the gift of the lyric for this album, for that song, dedicated to Amadou Diallo. And Amadou was shot 41 times. And so that started off as that, and then morphed into a celebration or a commemoration of 9/11 on the first anniversary. We performed it with Sekou as he excuse me.
It's okay. I understand.
This stuff is so powerful.
Yeah.
It's I'm sorry.
No, so it's quite all right. And, that's why I asked about this tune in particular, because it seems so appropriate for now. We just had the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And it seems like now, more than ever, we're losing people. We've lost so many greats in the jazz genre, just in the past year since the pandemic hit. So I know that this album is directly speaking to everything that has been going on, especially inside of this pandemic, but even just in the 2000s, really.
It speaks directly to my family too. We've had situations where death was imminent, and we got past it, we got through it, with the grace, so I'm sorry, I can't.
No, it's okay. It's okay. And we thank you for this.
Yeah. I can't pull it together. It's crazy. I'm trying to get, over. Okay, there it is. Woo. Woo. All right, I'm back.
That's okay, man. The emotion that this music, brings out is it's cathartic.
Really, it's hard to teach it, It's really hard to teach it because it's an oral tradition, and like when they put you in the schools to teach it, they have protocols, and of course you need those.
Yeah.
But I really learned from people who were emotionally attached to it, so I mean, it's funny because Abby used to say she's ready to go home. I mean, that shit used to break my heart. But I get it. I mean, I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
After you be here too long, you just be hurt,
Yeah. And I
Is
know
it possible you could play a track or something? Because I got to pull it together. I don't feel good.
Oh, you know what? We can transition to Trust again.
Sorry.
Those who are just know.
I didn't know this was going to happen. I'd start talking about these songs.
You know what? It is all right. And I appreciate you feeling like this is a safe space for you to emote.
It's not, though. That's the thing. It's ain't nowhere safe. That's the
right about that.
That's the reality we living in. Like, I put the title track bothers people. That track, the name of that track bothers people. Somebody put a comment on my post saying people don't follow people that use this kind of rhetoric to advertise. And I'm saying, like, wow, this person must not have empathy for what's happening now or anything that ever happened. And like, I connect this music directly to the struggle of my people and the community that I live in and the world we live in at large. Like, this music is empathetic. It deals with the emotions. Like, what makes you like something about somebody's performance is the fact that that very person, when they played that chord, had a thought. Like, if you listen to my music, you see what's happening to me right now. This happens when I'm playing. And it's like, that's my doctor, this music. And I hate to put that on the music, but I have the benefit of healing myself through it. And I hope other people receive that. That's like my general mantra through the music, like, this heal. Breathe. Breathe with the music.
Yeah. Let's
Yeah.
hear Trust. You want to do Trust again? I think
Yeah.
in the
You
very
want to
beginning.
from the album? The one from the album, what you gonna play now?
No, let's do the video again. Let's do the video again because people were just logging on when we played it initially.
Okay.
Here's Marc Cary. This is the 2019 DC Jazz Fest?
Yes. September. That was almost the last time I really got a chance to play it. So that's
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, when you saw me with band, that's me. I was like, oh, I was timid as hell. I was like, damn, I haven't played the piano so long. It felt so good though, And band, when you got the right notes up under you, man, everything works out. So
Indeed.
that was a good comeback for me.
Yeah. There's a comment here, by the way, that says, come on, Marc Cary on a Warren Shad piano, some of DC's finest.
Yeah, you did. Quick before you play that, Warren Shad's father is one of my piano teachers.
Get out of here.
Yeah,
Wow.
He taught me how to play stride. I learned how to play stride from him. He was the piano tuner for my actual teacher, Miss Eleanor Oxendine. And,
Wow.
and he would just show up on my lesson time, and he'd be listening. So as I progressed, he became more involved in what I was playing. Like, he heard me playing jazz. She wasn't a jazz instructor. She was a pianist, and she could teach you anything about the piano and American songbook. But when it came to jazz, he had input, and he helped me out a lot. So playing on his on the Shad piano was just another connection to the whole scenario.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be right back.
All right.
Marc Cary with Trust.
This is written by the great Roy Hargrove. It's called Trust. We're going to end the set with Trust.
Gorgeous.
Man, wow. It's funny watching yourself play.
Yeah. What do you? What does it bring up for you? Is it weird?
It's not weird. You know, when you play, if you really do it, you know, and you're not like trying to make a pretty face or something like that, you know, like you know, some singers are just pretty singers. You know, they're not going to try hard for the note. But like Betty Carter or Abby Lincoln, they you can see all the emotion in trying to get that note and the effort. You know, and you can see like, you know, I'm just looking. I study. I'm always trying to make myself better. So I'm a musician. It's just funny listening as a musician sometimes. But just now, the second time I was listening to it, I actually had an experience that I wasn't looking at myself. I actually I experienced it that time, and it was different. You know, it's unique.
Did it make you think of Roy?
Well, that's the thing. That's all I was thinking about when I play. I couldn't even really execute the song the way I wanted to because this pandemic really brought everything to the front. So when we did that and we pulled that song up, like I was damn near crying on the song. I was like, what the hell is wrong with me? Sometimes, you know, this stuff just pours out of you. So you got to deal with it. And it can happen at a performance. Like I used to watch Abby go through this. And it was like, man. And I understood why people just loved her. She has the most authentic fans. But she literally, whenever she called Down Here Below, because she was literally connected to these lyrics, it would draw tears. But they weren't like, oh, I'm so sad. It was like the weight of what the song means. So if you put all the words together and measure it, the weight of that is, I think, you know, she wore a lot of weight on her shoulders from the world, you know. So like you would see this, and like she would go through the whole thing of, you don't know if it's sadness or just happiness or whatever it is when she'd deliver, and then she'd be free. It would take a hold of her. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes it was a burden for her to release, because you can't play this music without the emotion. It'll sound like what most people sound like these days. It's because they're scared to give it up. Giving it up means not making it sometimes. You see what I mean?
Not making it.
Not making what you're going for. Sometimes you could just go for perfection, right? And then that means you're not going to put, so once you put emotion in it, that adds pressure, it adds dynamic. It takes away sometimes from accuracy, because it's not necessarily about the execution, it's more about the statement. So then you have a balance between how you view what you're doing, you know. Right. But if you let yourself free of that, then it all works out. Because like as a pianist and as a musician, you're always talking about perfection. You're thinking about like execution. But sometimes execution takes a back seat to the story. Just like for a lyric, like a lyricist, the music takes a back seat to the lyric. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, on to that point, it just makes me, because you have so many lessons that you have imparted here in this space. I'm wondering, how are you packaging that as a professor? You're at Juilliard and Manhattan School of Music. How do you teach this? What is your approach? Because as you mentioned before, of course, there's a syllabus in place. There's
my syllabus.
Guide.
I got paid to do my syllabus.
Oh, well, great.
But I had to put a syllabus together that still was in line with the basic fundamental principles of the schools. And I work at two different schools, so my syllabus has two different ways of work. You know what I mean? The information, I teach the same information, just differently. And so, yes, to answer your question, I think I got it. Did you finish your question?
Yeah, I did. Okay. So I'm just wondering, how do you, because you have some real lessons that you've learned,
right,
and that you've incorporated. You move differently from a lot of musicians out here. How are you advising your students, I'm wondering?
Okay, first thing I do is, I think it's very, by the time they're my students, they're either as good as me or better sometimes, as a musician. But that's not what this music is about. Like I'm older now, so I still spend time maintaining myself. But these kids are just now getting like, they have the impetus for learning new things and executing things that of their wildest imagination. And so do I still. But it's really about the opportunities. So my opportunities as of late have been slim. And, even while teaching, you have to give up some things to do these things. So I think it's been a bit of a sacrifice for me. But in that sacrifice, what I've been able to teach are some fundamental principles. And I teach fundamentals. I'm not into trying to teach somebody how to be spiritual or anything like that. I think that's an example that comes through the music.
Okay.
Like, and if you're around a person, those are the things that you observe. They don't teach you these things. Walter Davis didn't teach me how to be deep in the music. I saw how deep he was in the music and realized how deep I had to go.
Mm-hmm.
So like my lessons would, for example, with Walter Davis would be, I'd go to his house, he'd sit down at the piano and play for an hour and transcribe in front of me and play every solo in whatever given song he picked. He transcribed everybody's solo on the spot, played it back, and would find the humor in the language that they used. So his listening skills were really deep to the point that he understood the nature of the statement outside of a musical context. He understood the bigger picture because we're talking about bebop, which has an embedded language that has a meaning. Like these phrases aren't that's not just a it's not a 2-5-1. And that's how you got to teach it in schools. See what I mean? That actually is a profound statement that has a lyric to it. You see what I mean? Like a neighborhood lyric. It's a lyric that the cats know. So he knows all of this stuff, these embedded little things that no one would ever get just studying it or even transcribing it. Because he had the benefit of learning from the creators. So that's the benefit that my student has, is getting passed on information that I learned from the creators, and I learned from people who learn from the creators as well. So I'm passing those kind of lessons on, but I teach fundamentals. I teach that there are 3 diminished, and that there are 2 whole tones, and that there are 12 chromatics, and that the chromatic scale got 13 notes in it, not 12. So some of the things that might be, what I mean, they take a minute to look at, but my logic makes sense. And there's missing logic in some of the Western music. You got to go all the way around the world to get to a logic that for the blues. You can't find the blues in Western music. So I teach how to find inspiration for improvisation, which means I teach indigenous music. I teach North Indian classical music, what I know about it, and I expose them to the greater world and the depths of it. And I teach enough for them to gain an interest, but also to teach them how to borrow and bring ideas into this music, because you can't come to this music with nothing. There's nothing here. There's nothing but greatness that has been done. It's already been done. So if you go and transcribing everybody's stuff and playing that back, you ain't playing this music.
Right.
You are, what you've become is a historian, and or musicologist, and you've studied it, and you know that on this date Bud Powell played this very thing, but Bud made that up. So I teach the inspiration because I'm teaching you all the fundamentals that they had to work with. See, most people don't understand that to move a whole step, you have to engage everything that exists about music. To move one whole step, this is some technical stuff real quick, but to move one whole step is the equivalent of moving up a seventh. If I want to move down a whole step is the equivalent of moving up a seventh, 2/4, right? In order to do that, I have to engage 3 diminished chords, 2 whole tones, and the chromatic scale. Wow. And most people don't know that everything that they learn about music is engaged in just one movement. There's a mechanic, like a watch. The thing doesn't just go around like that by itself. There's a whole mechanism. There's one thing that goes that way, another one that goes that way, and another one that goes that way, just to make this thing go around like that.
Right.
So that's what's happening with music.
Wow.
You know,
You
the
just
circle.
gave me a whole lesson.
Yeah.
I'm the music major.
Yeah, no. I teach them how to think. And I teach them about indigenous music, which has the spirit of the blues in it. And that's what they all looking for. You ain't gonna find it in Western music. You gotta go and you gotta add that. You have to enrich it. So I'm telling you where to go to find it built in. You know what I mean? Like this, like if you talk about Indian classical music, they got rags that got the blues already built in the scale. You ain't gotta make it up. You ain't gotta justify by saying I flatted the fifth or none of that. It's already there.
Right.
And every bit of harmony that you make, which is not a construct of Indian classical music, there are no harmonic instruments. So I have an appreciation for this music and I want to be a part of it. So I found a way to make myself a part of it by, first of all, trying my best to understand the traditional way it goes, but then imagining how I could fit harmonically in it. There's no harmonic instruments to play in that music. And it's all about the soloist, which our music is not about the soloist. So there's the differences, but there are the unique qualities of their reason for their improvisation. And that's the beauty of what we do. We improvise. And I'd hate to to belittle what we do by calling it improvisation. But in the context of the schools, I teach improvisation. We're really composers.
Yeah.
We're spontaneous composers because once you have all the information of how music works, all you're doing is composing. So it's not improvisation. That's a really kind of a misleading thing, although it is helpful to get you in the ballpark of what's going on. It's deeper than that, though. Yeah.
Wow. I need to get into one of your classes.
Yeah, you should audit one of my classes. I have fun. By the time we finish the first class, they already playing John Coltrane transcriptions because I know how to teach that stuff on the spot. And the concept being like, if we play Giant Steps, we're not playing the melody. We're going to play John Coltrane's first chorus of his solo. That's the melody now. So all the songs that we pick, we take the leader of the album or the featured artist, and we take the first chorus of his solo on whatever given track, and that becomes the melody for the song. Because our improvisation or our spontaneous composition is woven over the harmonies of the song. You see what I mean? So that's another melody. That's another melody. So once you go and figure out somebody's first chorus of their solo, you can understand why the preceding choruses that they took, which means revolutions around the harmony, why they made those decisions. They're all in the first chorus. So the brilliance is in the first chorus, you know? And then the exploration of all the ideas in the first chorus happens in the preceding choruses that they solo.
Right.
So these are concepts, and I teach them how to make concepts and ask people to deliver on them, because that's the ultimate thing, getting people in the room and having them actually demonstrate or manifest an idea. That's a concept. And it's easy to do it on paper because most people are comfortable. I can see it. No, I'm talking about the kind of concepts that you explain to somebody and then we do it. None of my stuff is on paper. You can take as many notes as you want. You can record it, but I'm not writing it on paper. I'm not giving you a piece of paper to look at. I'll write it on the board, examples. I'll play it so you can hear it, and then you play it back. That's how the music works. It doesn't work the other way.
Right.
If you give somebody some music, they're going to forget it after they read it. They'll never remember it. They'll never internalize it. They'll always be looking for the paper.
You're right about that.
Where's the paper? Where's the paper? I don't know paper. I learned that when I got in Betty Carter's band because she had a book this big. And Betty don't tell you what the next song is. She just then gives you a downbeat. And then you look at the rest of the band and they're like, we're playing, you should know this song. They don't even know the name of the song. They're just playing. You see what I mean? So it's like you have to be that in tune. And it's happening on stage with somebody that got a mic that could easily say, what the hell are you doing? Right. You know, so that's the pressure. These kids ain't learning under pressure. So it's hard to get them to be a diamond in this coddled kind of situation. But they don't get coddled in my class, though.
I know that's right.
They get nurtured. They get nurtured, but not coddled. You know?
Yeah. They're getting these hard life lessons.
Yeah. It's about participation.
Get the album. Everybody. 17th, it comes out September 17th. Life Lessons. Marc Cary. Man, this has been I feel so full right now. Honestly, I have so much more I want to talk to you about.
I know we didn't even get to have. I know because I get along with it sometimes. But people
I
ask me,
love it.
you just hit the nails. You know, you kept hitting the bap. You hitting the nail in. It's like, man, I need to address that.
Oh man,
So
I didn't know. In my little research I did before this, I didn't know that you came from such a musical family.
oh yeah. I've been, but funny thing is, no one told me to play music. They were excited when I did, but
Okay.
they fully exposed me to everything they loved. There was no separate room for our music. It was all family room music. So anything we listen all in the same room. They listen to my go-go, I listen to that stuff. Everything happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, we woke up. I mean, music became a ritual. We exercised the music. I came from a family. We exercised every morning. I didn't even eat meat till I left home. That was a
Oh,
new thing. But that kind of family environment,
yeah.
it's great.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I can't wait to see what's next. I'm always in anticipation
Yeah, me
of
too.
where you're going creatively. And like you said, it's not improvisation, it's spontaneous composition. And that's exactly the experience that you give. And it's so completely healing, whenever I hear you. So
I
keep
get
doing
thanks.
that. We need it.
I need it. I tell you, I get healed by it, not necessarily on the performances, but just by the music itself. Some performances are more emotional than others, and you can tell the difference. I really try to give it all every time, but you can't just call the ghost. Sometimes the ghost appears, and that's what I look for. That's that magic carpet.
Yeah.
But other than that, music, high level musicianship, people appreciate that just as much. But they can feel the disconnect sometimes when your emotion is not connected to it. So
Mm.
staying in that space as an artist is really hard because you got to pull from things that actually affect you. When you see an actor crying, they're not crying because of the things they're saying in the dialogue. They're thinking about their mom died. That's how they were able to cry in that scene on the spot. So how do you make bring a song to life? You either get as deep as you can into the lyric, and that's why I teach lyric. The lyric is the most important thing of what we do. That gives you the understanding of what you're trying to do. And then the chords can be anything because they're emotional. Chords support the emotion. So then you can really get deep with what you do. You don't have to be stuck.
Yeah. The Marc Cary Academy. You got your own academy now.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna have to do that anyway, man, because after a while you realize that you don't fit into certain situations. But
Yeah, you really do. Like seriously, we need a Marc Cary Academy because you have so much to give, so
well,
much
I
to
come
offer.
from that. We had my uncle Donald had Cary Music Academy in New Jersey, Camden. He
Wow.
raised a bunch of kids. Yeah, I come from a very active community driven family. So for me not to be community driven, people would have been looking at me like, "The hell's wrong with you?" So
Yeah,
there's a lot of pressure to be involved and be active.
I
And
love
I'm
it.
Native American too, so I'm dealing with land rights issues. I'm
Oh,
dealing with trying to help organize our tribe and keep it together. And so yeah, there's a
wow.
lot going on musically and spiritually and in life. All that goes into my music.
Oh yeah. A lot charges you, and we hear it
Yeah,
all throughout Life Lessons. Get it? Comes out September 17th. The Marc Cary Trio with, I don't want to mess up their names, Diego Joaquin Ramirez
that's perfect.
on the drums and Dan. You're gonna have
Shimmy, we can call him Dan Shimmy, but it's Shimilensky.
Shimilensky
Yeah, Shimilensky.
on
Yep.
the bass. Both
Yes.
were your students. That's full
Yeah. So
circle.
Dan, well, I didn't tell you where Dan was a student of mine at Juilliard. He was one
Ah,
of the premier bassists, both in classical and jazz, and just a great bassist. He's uniquely one with that instrument, and you can hear that in his music. He transcends anything that you might think when you see somebody, or because most of the time we're preceded by what people perceive when they see you, and then they're always moved by the difference in their perception and what you really are.
yeah.
And he's that kind of gentleman. He's wonderful. Both him and Diego are like that.
Yeah. And I'm sure you wouldn't have asked them to be a part of your project if they weren't feeling on another level.
I don't think they would want to be bothered with me if they wasn't on the level that I am. And you don't have to be old to be there. It's about connectivity. You can be young. I know young people that are like that. You know, I'm amazed by it. So
yeah, absolutely. We got one last question in the comments here before we close out.
okay.
It says, with the closure of so many music venues in DC, New York City, and elsewhere, how can younger artists develop?
Well, there's a lot that's we're in a new space right now. So first of all, you have to organize. And I've been doing this since I was 12 years old. You have to organize. You have to become an organizer of people, of an event, of an idea that manifests. The opportunities that were given or that were available to me, the generation before me told me, man, you missed out on everything. So don't let nobody tell you there's nothing happening. You just got to know where to look, and you have to be creative and create your own kind of scenario, which, for me, I'm more interested in working with the performing arts organizations and the bigger clubs, like of note, that actually follow protocols and that are resourceful enough to have what an artist needs. I'm more into those kind of situations than anything else. But you have to go through these different. You have to traverse different paths. It might not be straight ahead for you. It might be you might have to take the back roads. Either way, you got to get to where you're going. So I would say it for any student of mine or any person trying to get into this music and figure out what to do. First of all, understand the business of music. The biggest thing is not your expertise on your instrument. That's a given. As great as you can be that. But at the same time, you building those skills, you need to build the skills of understanding how the business works now. You can go back and study the history of the recording industry if you want later, but it's a new business now. You need to get on a new business model and take your life into control. You have formats like Bandcamp, which means I'm suggesting performance is not going to be the mainstay, nor should it be 70% of your life, your livelihood. That's a very poor construct, because that leads to poverty at an old age or a young age, which everyone is experiencing now. Like if your whole thing was about performing, you're in poverty right now.
Right.
You have to you have to love music, and you have to be able to make music a viable resource for you, which means you have to understand the business of it. There's platforms such as first of all the digital platforms are very useful. Don't let nobody tell you otherwise. You have to control your product in order to get the use of it. Because if you have a middleman, they're getting your money. And if you're not registered, you're not collecting. So there's certain protocols to the new way of doing business, which means all of the playlists that want to put your music on, they send you a request if you own your music. And if you don't respond to that request, you don't get your money. It goes to a black box. And you sitting there wonder, where's my money? So that's just one aspect of it. The other aspects are organizing people, bringing a concept together, whether that's through bartering or whatever, putting a budget together, whether you've got other means through, my big point is do not put everything on music. Okay. Don't let people tell you that you're not a musician if you don't. You have to have varied means of income. You're trying to get a house or anything like that, you need varied streams of income. So it takes money to buy lands and to do anything. So that's the key. To make yourself viable is to understand business, to understand that unless you organize something or work with a venue, create a night like we did the Harlem Sessions, and involve the community, then you're not gonna really get nowhere. The artist, is the artist. You're obscure. If you want to get more out of music, you got to involve yourself in community. You got to make things available for others as well.
Right.
So what you do has to involve people, or be beneficial to others as well. That's how you can make it. That's one way. I have
So
a lot of things
basically,
I would tell people. You know, it's not limited to one little thing. So like that's the insight into the depth of it. Yeah.
but I think the gist of that is, you can't just think about self, number one,
No,
you know.
nobody cares. The moment you start bragging about your stuff, everybody's like, I don't like his music anyway. Because they don't like your attitude, you know. So or they hating on you. It's a lot of reasons, but truthfully speaking, when other people are benefiting because you care or you're willing to give a part of your experience, you know, and involve and let people be involved, that's a big deal. You know, like for me, I stream my practice routines, which can be embarrassing sometimes, but you know what? No one ever sees that. People see the artist in its most purest form. Like, I'm perfect. I just did the greatest show ever. You enjoyed it. Everybody had a good time. But there's a lot of work to get to that and to maintain those kind of levels. And people wonder how you do it. You know, you can see how I do it every day. I practice every day to maintain and then just to get a little further ahead. It's incremental, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, love your lives. On the roads today, that was gorgeous. I
Oh,
dropped it.
thank you. Yeah. But you know, it's really about connectivity. I'm not trying to play. I don't perform songs on these streams because that's like a performance. For me, I'm doing things that show the connectivity with syncopation because that's another big part of what we do. So the right rhythm somehow finds the right notes. So I'm not looking for the right notes. I'm looking for the right rhythms most of the time, and then the notes find themselves. So that's one way I practice, and I share that with people. You know, I think those kind of things bring people more into your sphere, and nowadays that's the only way people gonna get to know you. So, you know,
Right.
I don't mind that experience.
Absolutely. Well, Mark,
Yeah, I know we can go on and on.
thank you for
Yeah,
we got to do a part 2. How about
I
that?
love that. Yeah, continuation. Yeah, yeah,
I would love to do a part 2
yeah.
and
I'm
part
glad we caught
3.
up with each other. You know, especially with my brother Ben. You know, it
Yes,
was a great reunion for all of us. You know,
it was at Jazz on the Narrows, man.
yeah,
That
yeah,
was really a magical experience there.
yeah.
So I'm
It
so glad
was.
that we could connect and talk about this important album. Actually, you can find it if you go on WBGO's website. He's listed in our fall preview.
Yeah.
Um, but to get it, markcary.com is on all digital platforms, correct?
Yes.
Are we getting vinyl?
Oh yeah, the vinyl is beautiful. I put a stamp on it. The vinyl is excellent. I sent it to a few people to listen to on their systems, and we got back nothing but grade A. So I think you'll have a great experience. It's high fidelity. It's recorded at 88.
Nice.
So it's at its highest possible 88 24-bit, and we left it open. No compression or nothing. It's all this wide open sound.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, yeah. I hope y'all enjoy it. Thank you so much, Keanna, for having me, and your listeners for the great questions that they contributed. So let's do another one.
Yes, indeed. We're gonna make this a life lesson series. I feel a series
Yeah.
brewing here.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
Let's do it. We'll talk.
Okay. Real talk. Real talk. Yeah. And we bring other people on, and me and you interview them and talk to them about life.
Yeah. Let's do
Yeah.
that.
All right. I'm producing
All
now. You see me?
I love it. Marc Cary, thank you so much.
All right, y'all. Peace.
All right, we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And thank you guys so much for joining me for this edition of The Pulse with the, incredible Marc Cary. Make sure you keep up with all things The Pulse on WBGO's website, wbgo.org/The Pulse. And I'll be back next week with a new artist. And I'll tell you who that is very soon. So make sure you stay tuned. I'm Keanna Faircloth. Have an amazing evening, and I'll see you next time. Good night.